Okay, today we're going to dive into a crisis that's not just pushing one nation to the brink, but really it's threatening the security of an entire continent. We're talking about the calculated, slow-motion siege of Mali's capital, Bamako.
And this isn't some historical event. No, this is happening right now, in what's already one of the most volatile regions on the entire planet. The capital of Mali is being slowly, deliberately strangled, cut off from the world, and you've got millions of lives just hanging in the balance.
All right, let's get right into it. So who's behind this? The group responsible is Jamaat Nusrat al Islam wal Muslimin, or JNIM for short. They are an al-Qaeda affiliate, and for months they've been tightening this metaphorical noose around Bamako, a city that used to be seen as a real bastion of stability in the region. And I want to be clear, this isn't just a series of random attacks. Oh no, this is a very calculated, very strategic blockade. And the impact of this blockade, it's just a total disruption of everyday life. I mean, think about it. Gas stations have run dry. Universities have had to shut their doors. And crucial humanitarian aid, it's completely cut off. We're talking about a city of over 2 million people being systematically paralyzed. This brings us to a really important term here, the pali crisis. And what does that mean? Well, it means this isn't just one single problem. It's this tangled up web of crises where everything is connected and trying to solve one thing just makes another thing worse. So for example, say the military decides to escort a fuel convoy into the city. Great, right? Well, that means they've just pulled troops away from a rural village, leaving it completely unprotected. It's this vicious cycle where every solution just seems to spark a new emergency. So the big question is, how did things get this bad? How did Mali get here? Well, the story really kicks into high gear with the military coup back in 2020. You had the junta seizing power, and they made one single promise to the people. We will restore security. But the reality? It has been the absolute polar opposite.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows a really clear pattern of self-inflicted wounds, of isolation. First, the junta kicks out the democratically elected government. Okay, then they tell their most experienced international partners, we're talking French forces, the UN peacekeeping mission, to pack their bags and leave. And then, the final nail in the coffin, they pull out of ECOWAS, which is the main political and economic bloc in West Africa. They've basically cut themselves off from their own neighbors, and in doing so, they've created this massive, dangerous security vacuum.
And the results of that security vacuum, honestly, they're staggering. Let's just look at the data. Under the previous democratic government, there were about 787 terrorist incidents. Under the junta, that number has just exploded to over 4,100. And fatalities, they've more than quadrupled, from around 2,100 to almost 9,000. So that promise of security, yeah, completely and utterly broken.
Just look at this chart showing the average number of fatalities per year. This spike under military rule, it's not a little bump. It's a catastrophic, off-the-charts escalation. And let's be blunt, this is the direct result of a junta that has clearly decided its own survival is more important than protecting its own people.
So, that brings us back to JNIM's strategy. And you have to understand, this siege isn't just about grabbing land. No, it's way more sophisticated than that. It's a political weapon. The whole goal is to make the state look completely useless, totally irrelevant. They want to erode public trust so completely that the entire system just collapses from the inside out.
So what's their key target? It's simple, fuel. In a country like Mali, fuel is everything. It's the lifeblood. It's what runs the military's vehicles, the trucks that deliver food, the generators that power the hospitals. By cutting off the fuel, JNIM has basically found the state's jugular vein. It's a brilliant, brutal strategy. Cause maximum economic and psychological pain with minimum military effort.
And here's another thing. They aren't doing this alone. Intelligence suggests that something like 5,000 foreign fighters, we're talking veterans from conflicts in places like Syria and Yemen, have made their way to the Sahel. And they bring a ton to the table. Combat experience, money, global connections. They're essentially turning what was a regional insurgency into a new global hub for extremism. Okay, so we've talked about strategy and geopolitics, but behind all of that, there's a devastating human cost. We can't forget that. And the fallout from this crisis, it's not going to stay neatly within Mali's borders. It's already spilling over, and it's threatening the entire West African region.
This quote from a refugee, man, it just says everything. On one side of us were the jihadists, and on the other, Wagner. Can you even imagine being caught in a situation like that? Civilians are literally trapped. On one side, you have insurgents telling them to get out or be executed, and on the other, you have the Malian army and their Russian Wagner allies whose drone strikes often end up killing civilians. There's literally nowhere to go that's safe.
And the scale of this human tragedy is just immense. We're talking about 300,000 people who have already been displaced by this conflict. And it's getting worse fast. In just the last 2 weeks, another 1,600 people were forced to run for their lives. This is a humanitarian disaster that's escalating by the day.
And this is exactly why this matters to everyone, not just people in Mali. JNIM is using its strongholds there as a launchpad. They're already pushing into coastal nations like Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Benin. Think about the implications. If Bamako falls, it could create a jihadist corridor stretching all the way from the Sahara to the Atlantic Ocean. That's a game changer, and not in a good way. So, the question has to be asked. Is there any way out of this death spiral? You've got the junta totally isolated. You've got JNIM more powerful than ever. The options are, well, they're narrowing, and they're narrowing fast. It really starts to feel like an impossible situation.
But there is a potential path forward, at least according to analysts. It's not easy, but it involves 5 critical steps. Number 1, re-engage. The junta has to end its isolation and start talking to its regional partners again. 2, collective defense. They have to work together on security because this going-it-alone thing has been a total failure. 3, share intel. They need to create systems to work with their neighbors to see attacks coming. 4, restore politics. They have to reverse the ban on political parties and civil society, give people a peaceful alternative to extremism. And finally, number 5, protect aid. It's simple. They must open and protect humanitarian corridors to save civilian lives. The thing is, right now, none of that is happening. Which leaves us with a pretty sobering final thought. We might have already passed the point of no return, the point where we could have saved Mali as we know it. So the new, really urgent question isn't how to save Mali anymore. It's how the rest of the world can contain the fire before it spreads even further.